According to a parliamentary report, sea levels are predicted to rise by 40 centimetres by 2050 and 91 centimetres by 2100. Scientific estimates in the same report indicate that for each centimetre of sea level rise, as much as 1 metre of coastal land could be eroded. Currently there is little or no documentation for residents who live on the coast, who want to protect their properties from rising sea levels and resulting erosion. Craig Morrison, a project manager with Sydney Coastal Council's group, says broad guidelines for action need to be put into place before any new management strategies can be implemented by residents or otherwise.
Most of the consideration of impacts is done at a lot by lot scale or site by site, but I think to encourage consistency and appropriate adaptation options, guidelines and adaptation strategies at either a regional or state scale are the most appropriate, and then drilling down to that, providing guidance to either homeowners or councils at a local level.
But there is no clear consensus on how the strategy should be organised. Shadow Parliamentary Secretary for Infrastructure and Planning, Rob Stokes, believes that a common sense approach is much more appropriate.
I am, again, my liberal philosophy alarms me a little bit at policy. I think principles are much more important, because policies, sometimes they might apply very well in one situation but not in another, and the nature of our coastline is, depending where you are on the coast, the forces you face are entirely different. The development pressures are entirely different. No beach is exactly the same, and none operate in exactly the same way. So to have a blanket policy is problematic. You need blanket principles of how you will manage a situation, but how that works on an individual case or an individual property or an individual beachfront, we need to maintain flexibility.
The majority of experts and draft documents suggest that a council-level approach will be the most effective. Many residents agree that the management of coastal strategies cannot be done at too broad or too narrow a scale, but that something does need to be done. Dean Watts owns a property at Edelong on the New South Wales Central Coast. He says he has seen a significant erosion of the beach over his lifetime, including the erosion of additional sand dumped on the beach by the local council over the last 60 years.
I've known this area for approximately all my life, all that I can remember, because my grandfather owned a house in one of the side streets up here, which he bought in 1914, and I'm obviously not that old, but I've been coming down since before I can remember. There are areas further down the beach where the properties are, where there's no road reserve between the property and the bay, that so that the water has actually washed very, very close to the front fence of the properties.
You can see behind me here at Booker Bay on the New South Wales Central Coast how close some of the homes are to the water level. Many of these homes face the risk of inundation if sea levels rise as predicted, and many of these houses cannot be protected against this risk. Mr. Watts agrees that the solution lies not in individual property protection, but in a collaborative effort based on broader guidelines.
In the case of here, well, the council's going to be has got a vested interest in this, because it's got a property between us and the sea, so it's going to be involved in any case. But I guess philosophically, one particular unit here, one particular property here, is not in a position to protect itself without being a cooperative for the rest of the properties along the coast.
The recent legislation introduced into the New South Wales Parliament is based on a council approach and outlines how residents can protect their properties and to whom they will be answerable.
They're answerable to the council, essentially, and under new legislation that's been introduced, there'll be fairly significant fines, and if you're proven to not only dump sandbags or rocks illegally, but if it's not done to a prescribed standard, that the council can fine you for doing so and then order you to remove either said rocks or sandbags. So, and that's a fairly expensive thing to do.
The legislation is expected to pass through Parliament by June this year.